Hello, Star Wars fans. Welcome to our spoiler review of part 3 of Obi Wan Kenobi. And it starts with flashbacks of Vader, and then we transition to the real Vader, who makes this, I wouldn't want to call it a deal, but an agreement with the third sister. So we basically saw a little bit of a making of Vader. Of course, we've already seen part of this in episode 3. And I mean, episode 3, the movie episode 3, the Return of the Sith. But we get some, shall we say, additional perspectives on the whole thing. And then we experience Vader in real life making this deal that could be very beneficial or deadly for the third sister. And
after the third sister came to Vader, he know what she really wants, and what came to my mind is that that process of the dark side, you can't get what you want, but if you fail, you will die. That was, that's something we can see very often if someone does a, so to say, contract with the dark side. I believe.
I would object here a little bit, because I think you can, you think you get what you want, but you don't really. I mean, look at Vader himself. What did he want? He wanted to be with Padme Amidala. And what did he end up with? He was a machine. He killed the woman he loved, that he supposedly did this all for, or that he believed he did this all for. And he ended up to be a machine of the Emperor. So I don't think you get what you really wanted, and you die.
That's a really, really good point here. Yeah.
So I think it's not quite so positive.
Yeah.
You are being, manipulated by fears and hopes, but it's not really, these fears and hopes. The fears may come true, but the hopes, I don't know. I mean, do you know any person in Star Wars who went to the dark side and who really got what they wanted? I mean, the closest thing would be the Emperor himself, but I mean, he is a pretty ugly dude.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I mean, I don't know. He doesn't really look too happy most of the time. So I don't know.
Yeah, so you have a very hard drawback either way. So
yeah, it doesn't look too good. Doesn't look too good. So yeah.
Yeah, so what I found interesting here is we can see very clearly that nearly everybody knows what they want and what they strive for, especially the third sister and of course Darth Vader. But Obi Wan Kenobi is not sure of himself, and so we noticed this. So he does not come into his power back or again, and also we can see that it was my impression, he got some thoughts when he saw the wall with the signs of the Jedi who've been there before at this safe place. And when he heard the stories, which was obviously new to him, I guess, so that the Jedi still have friends, and they are still active, and they still try to save younglings, and how force-sensitive people are sought after, and to nobody knows what happens to them. So I guess this makes him, this gets him thinking. So maybe, although I find it strange he was not aware of it. Okay, he was in isolation, but so maybe he finds, at first I thought at the end of the second episode that he sort of got a goal for himself, like, okay, Anakin is still alive, I have to do something about it. But so far, we have not yet really seen this.
Well, one of the things that we do find, and I think that's a problem that maybe is a big problem to a certain extent of the whole Disney franchise approach to Star Wars. I didn't see this so much before, but they present us our heroes in their weak states. And I'm not talking about the kind of weakness that we had in the original trilogy or even in the prequels, where Luke Skywalker was weak. And he was weak in the sense that he could not be patient enough, as Yoda criticized him, or similar things. Or the way Anakin was weak by falling to the dark side, it's kind of like these are active weaknesses. People make mistakes. People are weak that they give into temptation or even fear or anger or anything like that. But here we have a weakness that they give into just being passively weak. You know, the same kind of weakness that they presented in episode, they indicated in episode 7 and showed as in episode 8 of the main Star Wars saga, with Luke. You know, suddenly he was just this weak blob who would drink green milk instead of blue milk. Maybe that's the problem. I don't know, but you know, somebody where even the actor Mark Hamill said, like, what's that? That's not Luke Skywalker as I understand him to be. You know, he was thinking he'd be some kind of more wise Obi Wan Kenobi kind of guy, and now it's just awful. And now we put to have Obi Wan Kenobi, and he's not an Obi Wan Kenobi kind of guy anymore, so to speak.
That's right.
And I think that's kind of sad. I mean, the fighting performance, I mean, it's at the end of the episode, but this is going to be spoiler anyway. So, I mean, this was just pathetic. I mean, if I remember Obi-Wan Kenobi fighting before, Anakin was stronger in episode 3, The Return of the Sith, but Obi-Wan Kenobi, you know, he put up a pretty decent fight, and he actually won. He had an advantage, a spatial advantage. He was getting the upper hand because he was in the higher position, but he won the fight. You know, he effectively defeated Darth Vader, and I can't see that Darth Vader now in his armor is stronger than he was before. Maybe he has learned things about the Force, but we also know he's more limited. That all of canon tells us he is not as strong in the armor as he was before. So, and it's only 10 years past. I mean, it's not like Obi-Wan is an old man yet. So that is kind of pathetic. And I think he did a better job in episode 4 in A New Hope fighting. And I mean, he only lost in A New Hope effectively because he stopped fighting. He actually stopped fighting, not because he gave up, but because he thought that was a clever idea. I still don't really see how that was a clever idea in episode 4 in A New Hope, because I mean, he could have still gone on fighting. I don't see how this would have been less of a distraction if he had gone on fighting.
Yeah.
But you know,
what you said is with a passive hero. I mean, this is something that they play with because in one scene with Leia or Luma, and she says something like, "Father, don't you want to say hello?" So this is what parents normally tell their children.
Yeah.
And so he's very, very passive, and she takes over the active part and manages getting a lift with Freck. And before that, Obi-Wan was very impatient. He didn't even wait a little bit, so he was in an imbalanced way, too active, too fast. did not think properly, and then he
Did he
was too
not?
passive. So
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what situation you refer where he was.
there was
too
this
active.
the coordinates he got to so they went on this planet to this place where they were supposed to meet a helper, and when they arrived there, no one was there, and he was impatient. He said, "Okay, nobody will be coming. We go away." And then they get a lift from
You
Frank.
mean that's because he didn't wait any longer, or what's the problem? Here?
Yeah, so he was impatient. He didn't wait. He said maybe it's a trap, something like that. And then they got the lift by Frank.
I think he had a bad feeling about this, and that's a legitimate reason to change your course. I guess.
Well, with
in
this
Star Wars.
bad connection to the Force, I'm not sure. And he didn't say so
And he
anyway.
didn't say so. Yeah, he should have said so.
And maybe this was another character, wasn't it?
I think everybody in Star Wars at some point or another said, "I have a bad feeling about it." At least the heroes do.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, I don't know. Interesting. But effectively, I find in a lot of actions he's passive, he's weak. He doesn't. I mean, yes, he says he's not the man he used to be, but why? Why? We still don't have an explanation. It's just like, did the fact that Disney took over Star Wars kind of, depressed him or something?
This is
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, I guess from what we learned there, he gave up. So he didn't know that the Jedis were still there, we still have friends, and still can do something.
I do get that this whole thing was depressive. I mean, they lost big time. They messed up big time, you can say. They didn't see it coming. I can understand that. But, I mean, and then in a way, it's kind of the mood. I mean, Yoda goes into hiding and stuff. But still, I mean, when we meet Yoda, he is not that depressive. For the first time. I mean, why is he so depressive? I mean, yes, it's difficult, but I mean, they still have hope, Yeah. I mean, the episode 4 is actually called A New Hope, and that's still to be coming. I mean, they have actually more hope than we should have had in episode 4, because they know there are 2 potential Jedis who have enough power to perhaps turn the whole thing around. I mean, they never trained Leia, and I don't know why they never trained Leia. That's never explained also.
Yeah, maybe we learn more about this.
Maybe we do, and maybe it's just going to be depressive. So I'm while the last time I said I don't have any criticism, that annoyed me a little bit to see him so weak and to just barely escape. I would have thought, especially a younger, my prediction would have been, just from the Star Wars canon, that a younger Obi Wan Kenobi, given the fact that he effectively defeated Anakin with an advantage that was not based on his pure strengths, but based on partly the arrogance of Anakin. But he did hold his own, and he did defeat him eventually using a better tactic. In episode 4 in A New Hope, he held his own until to the point that he chose to be defeated. So I had no reason to believe that Obi Wan Kenobi would be just, I mean, why in the middle of between those two, a victory and a chosen defeat? Now he is like, it's not a chosen defeat. He is just rubbish, and I go like, why is that, please? And he's not that old, surely, I mean, he should be physically more fit than old Obi-Wan.
I believe it's not about physics at this point. It's in my opinion, it's some sort of mental thing. Andrea mentioned before that or I believe that you mentioned it, that he seems that he lost the connection to the Force, and we had, I believe it was in the second episode, that scene where he the first time used his Force, and he had really a hard time
Yeah.
to even connect to it, and
Yeah, I get that, and I agree that
yeah.
This would be the problem. But then why? You know, I mean, I find this just apparently we're led to believe that he was just depressed about Anakin and that's it. But you know,
maybe he has some sort of doubts. While we saw that scene, just one moment, where he asked Qui-Gon, or tried to ask Qui-Gon that he give him a sign. That scene where he kneeled on the ship. Qui-Gon seemed to not even reply. So I had that impression at least, and yeah, maybe he has something to learn at this point at the moment.
Yes, but I mean, he is one of the major Jedi, and if you just look at the Jedi Code, I mean, we are given the Jedi Code in various places, especially in the prequels, and you know, the Jedi Code says there is no emotion, there's peace, there's no ignorance, there's knowledge, there's no passion, there is serenity. So I mean, if the Jedi Creed only works if everything goes well, you know, there's peace as long as you're victorious. Then it's bullshit, really. Yeah. I mean, and Obi Wan Kenobi was not just some odd idiot. He was one of the major Jedi. You know, he was one of the masters on the Jedi Council. So I would assume he should have lived to some level according to this. And this is what I'm saying. He was supposed to have been already there, or was he worse at that whole thing than Anakin? I mean, clearly Anakin followed more the Sith code, which is more encourages you to give in to your negative passions and negative feelings. But I mean, this seems to be like, yeah, yes, of course, I can understand how there is fear. I can understand how there is sadness about all the things, but that's all the sign of things that Anakin failed in. So was his teacher really so crappy in that? And then maybe that explains why Anakin failed, because Obi-Wan never believed in the thing in the first place. Maybe, or did he believe in it? But then I would expect him to rise above these challenges, because that's the moment when to apply it. I mean, yes, I'm being very idealistic here. And I would say every normal human being would really, really badly struggle with that. We're not talking about normal human beings. We're talking about Jedi who were trained their entire life to be able to follow this code.
Yeah.
So isn't that the moment to apply it?
He seems to be set down to a human level, or from a level he should be to a level where he is now. That's very huge difference. That I get your point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you could say that's happened because of all the defeat and sadness and stuff.
Yeah, but a little too much at least.
Yeah, but the whole point is, I mean, you know, if he was a superhero and he got his power from believing in himself and he lost his belief because something bad happened, that would make sense. But he's a Jedi, and the core code of the Jedi, the core creed is there is no emotion. So I would say, if that's what you live by and what you trained for your whole life, then get over it.
Yeah.
You know, yes, that was really bad what happened to Anakin. And yes, you might have messed up. And yes, he was your personal Padawan. Get over it. That's what you practiced your whole life. And now apply it. So this seems... I mean, what is it for if your favorite soccer team doesn't win? Or, I mean, is that what I trained for? I mean, I guess they have to train for some serious defeat, because I mean, or some other serious passionate moment, you know. If that's not what it's for, I don't get it. So, what I'm saying is, what they're doing now is they're dismissing all that was powerful about the Jedi, about this particular Jedi, and make him just weak. You know.
And maybe this is the weakness of the series, because it's hard to explain, as you just said. So the way he is described is like he has to do a day job, and very well on a poor level, sort of. So he's not rich anymore or wealthy. He has lost his way of life, and
I suppose that's all okay. The day job kind of sucks. I would expect him to have other means. I mean, if you were to like live in the desert and go hunting or something like that, I would go like, yeah, that's
of course.
That's
but
fine.
this is a means of how they describe his way, and maybe this is a weakness of the series, of course. So we are made believe that he is going down the social level, so to speak, and he's weak. He has no goal, and I mean, this gets very obvious in the third episode here, because everybody's got a goal. The third sister is very ambitious. The fifth brother guy also. So almost everybody has their goals, but he hasn't. So even Leia is.
But he should have. I mean,
yes,
he actually does have, because this is kind of the thing where it's not working. You know, he has a goal. He is to protect Luke and be ready to train him whenever he's ready, which by classical Jedi standards would be now. You know,
and
so it's
exactly
not. I don't get it.
His goal is to train Luke, and now he's out to save Leia. So
yeah, that's okay. That's also cool if he saves Leia and goes like, hey, I have a side quest here, which is even like part of the main quest, because Leia would be considered equally important.
Yeah.
But,
so and one would also
he's shown as a weak blob with no goal, even though he has 2 goals or 3, like protect Luke, train Luke, save Leia. So what? You know?
I really hope he will recover his strength and they find a good explanation why it is that way. But I'm quite skeptical.
I feel we already have seen the explanation. It's his depression about Anakin and his depression about the defeat. I don't think there's going to be anything more. If there was anything more, or if they would go at least so much deeper into it, that it would make sense. But they would have to explain why he broke with the Jedi Code. That's the thing they need to explain, because that's already in place. You know, I mean, for any other character, that would be cool. I mean, to go like, oh, he was depressed because of all the shit that happened, you know? Yeah, okay, I get that. You know, if it was like any ordinary hero, I don't know, John Wick guy, and he lost, and then his wife died, and his wife's dog died, and whatever, and now he's really depressive, and he's given it all up, and he got drunk. I would all get that. And I would say, okay. And then we witness his journey back from being a drunk, depressive guy who lost his soul for the last 10 years.
And maybe
but that's not what we have here. We have a Jedi.
Maybe we've seen a foreshadowing of what happens, because we learned that Anakin was very ill, of course, and very badly hurt. And he learned to operate the Force by just his hand and gesturing, and now Obi Wan is in a similar situation, not that badly hurt, but so maybe this gives him some time and some, you know, opportunity to relearn to use the Force again, and also regain his strength and maybe his principles and his goal.
I guess so, but I'm still not. I'm just saying there has to come more, or otherwise I feel it's not satisfying enough to explain how he felt so deep.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, because what the series doesn't take into account, I think that's my main criticism, that he is a Jedi, that he lived by the Jedi code, and that the Jedi code should be enough to deal with this, because otherwise it cheapens the Jedi code. It makes it all superficial. Like, it is this code that basically has this quality of like, balance your emotions, whatever comes. And if it's cheapened to balance your emotions, if your favorite soccer team loses, but if something serious comes, of course, you're going to be as depressive as anybody else, if not worse, then I guess that is this process of cheapening the hero because you don't have a good story to tell.
Yes.
I mean, but ideally you should, even in the story of Luke Skywalker, rather than making him a cheap version of himself, you should figure out a challenge that is so challenging that this hero can still, that you can explain why this hero struggles. And that doesn't mean like you have a bigger Death Star again and now it's a planet killer. You really have to develop a story here,
And that's a weak point of it. Yes. So I would have expected after episode of this series too, when he managed to save Leia from falling to her death, that he would have picked up on it and developed it some more, but he hasn't.
Yeah, there was no development. I hoped also that he will develop over the next episodes, but this time he grabbed his lightsaber and just fucked up, so to say, if I can say such a word on YouTube.
Yeah, it's true. And I mean, I don't know, I would expect it's something like that you don't completely forget. I mean, he's doing this his entire life. I don't know. At least until he was in, I don't know, his maybe 30s or something like that. So he has at least, even if he started, I think he started as a very early youngling. We also already heard the story right now, so that he would have started training at 5, 6, 7, something like that, until he was, probably well into his 30s. So we can assume that he would have 25, 30 years of training, and yes, he may have not trained the last 10 years, which again, why would he not last, even if he's depressed, even for the purpose of defending Luke, which he clearly still does want to do. Like, okay, so he wants to defend Luke, he wants to protect him, and if something happens, he's just a shadow of himself. At least for that purpose, he should have trained, continue improving. He was given the instruction by Yoda to train and to continue.
A probable explanation could be that if the Inquisitors can sense the Force activity, then he couldn't give away Luke's hiding place by practicing. So, but he could have gone somewhere else or found a solution for this. But instead, he really fucked up, like he addressed Leia while with the stormtroopers present as Leia, not as Luma, and several stuff. Also, so
I don't find that explanation satisfying for a number of reasons. First of all, he could have still kept up his physical training without using the Force, at least the basic sword fighting, the lightsaber fighting, practicing his forms. I mean, they have specific training forms. True. Even using a stick as a substitute for a lightsaber. He could have practiced the general movements. So that's one thing. Second thing, he is in the middle of the desert, and there is really no Inquisitor for miles and miles and miles. And I really don't see, I mean, they are not like, the average Inquisitor is not on the level of Vader or the Emperor or Yoda, They can't sense this for miles. If he's doing it right in front of them, yes. But I mean, if the next person is like a mile away or even 100 meters away, I guess, do they even sense that?
Okay, good point.
So, and he was instructed by Yoda, who knew his shit, to practice. He said, get in contact with Qui-Gon Jinn, and he didn't go like, oh yeah, you may be in hiding and don't do anything with the Force. No, contact Qui-Gon Jinn and train this stuff, learn more. So why not? Why not? If they give us this explanation, and if it's a satisfying one, I'm fine. But right now, it's not happening. But anyway, let's just wrap up what else happened, because a lot of things happened that we haven't even touched upon. Just quickly. So the team of them, they go onto this transporter with this dude called Freck. And there's 4 stormtroopers. They are looking for a Jedi, which is kind of weird to start with. 4 stormtroopers looking for a Jedi? Are they just on a suicide mission? Or are they just going to go like, okay, whenever we get a notice that 4 stormtroopers are killed, that's where the Jedi was?
Actually, when Obi-Wan says, I wouldn't know a Jedi if I saw one, it could have been really funny because,
they could have said, yeah, me too,
but it was sort of so depressing that I really
it was. It would have kind of, like a funny answer would have been like, it's one of the stormtroopers that said, to be honest, they didn't tell us how to recognize a Jedi anyway. For all we know, you could be a Jedi and we wouldn't recognize you. Yes. That would have been a funny answer.
Yes.
But yeah, and I think even if they would recognize him, what are they going to do against a Jedi? I mean, we see what they do, nothing, even against a Jedi who completely fucks up. Sorry, YouTube, but they do nothing. But anyway, they don't even recognize it when Obi-Wan almost gives it away, even though it was kind of a good catch, going like, yeah, Leia was her mother's name, even though, did they know who they were looking for? Like Obi Wan Kenobi and some girl called Leia? Did they give this information out or not? Apparently not.
A good question. So yeah, I wondered the same. So I expected that they get their guns and hey, it's you, but it didn't happen.
No, not at all.
Yes. So, then, but the way there was one moving moment. At least it could have been moving when she says, "Are you my father?" Yeah. And he says, "When I look at her, I see her mother." So, yeah,
that was kind of. I like that moment as well.
Yes.
I have to say that he could have said a little more about it. He could have said like, "Your father was a friend of mine," or something like that.
Yeah.
But at least. Apparently she now feels the connection to him, which of course we know she has developed later on. Yeah. So that's really nice. Yes. And they arrive eventually at this place where they're being stopped, where there's this control, where basically Obi-Wan kills everybody. Then he wants
I liked very much the way he freed Lila by shooting this stormtrooper guy. That was a surprise because normally in movies you don't see that. So he's threatening her, I cannot shoot, but he did. So that was.
And again, but I was asking kind of like, maybe that's still saying he's not so good with the Force, because I think what would have made sense is just to force the gun away from threatening her, to control his hand by the Force so he can't pull the trigger and he can't point the gun on her. That would have been, I guess, what a Force user normally would have done, but he didn't. So,
But he was good enough. He was good enough to solve the situation. So
yeah, but still, a little risky. And then he opened this laser barrier by shooting at the controls. I'm kind of thinking, in Star Wars, can you open and close every door by just shooting at the controls? Is that how it works? Because that seems to be the rule.
It seems so.
This is the equivalent to Windows. So
yeah, I don't know. Just shoot it and it opens or closes or stays closed. Whatever you want, just shoot it and it's going to be fine.
Whatever's required.
Yeah, because that's how it works, apparently. I don't know. But,
I like the way Tala saved the situation. So this was a nice surprise.
Yeah, so she's an interesting character. We don't yet know too much about it. And then there was a scene when they arrived at this place that you already mentioned, and Quinlane was here. So do we know who Quinlane is?
I don't
thought-
really know.
The name vaguely sounds familiar, but I may just make this up in my mind.
So I didn't know him, but I thought, well, I'm not so good at Star Wars,
Maybe
all
we
the
should,
stories
maybe
and
we should Google
series.
this before the next review. Anyway, they arrive at this hideout, and there is this loader droid who can't even speak, but kind of for what reason I like him, and he seems to be like a cool guy who has this hammer ready to smash in the heads of the stormtroopers if things should go bad. So that's cool.
It was very cool. I thought they had so many speaking droids like R2D2, and so they needed a bit of a change here.
And then the real scene comes, of course, with Vader presenting himself, and everything gets dark, and Vader's like so much more evil than we know him. Like he's just killing people because they are there. I mean, it's not even killing younglings because he needs to get rid of them. It's killing them just because they hang around as a hobby or something.
Yeah, it's very cruel. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that's like the evilest Vader we've seen, and he seems to be really frustrated. So Kenobi runs, and eventually there's this this fight, and we hear some sentences that fit to Vader, like "the years have made you weak." It sounds almost like it could have been out of episode 4 and out of New Hope.
Yeah. Also, what have you become? I am what you made me.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought, because I thought, like, is this true or is this not true? In a sense, of course, Obi Wan cut off his legs, and he fell into the lava, and so that's kind of what Obi Wan made him. But also, he made it himself, because Obi Wan said, "Don't jump, don't do it, don't go for it." And it, "No, you underestimate the Force in me." And then he did jump. So I think he also has some responsibility for it himself. He should take responsibility himself. And then, of course, also Palpatine made him what he is now.
Absolutely.
So it's like 3 people who were involved. Obi-Wan was one of them. I think the first one was Anakin himself. Second one, yes. After he did give in to his arrogance, that's what happened. And then it was Palpatine who made him into this. But he just, he can't really be too angry on Palpatine, or maybe he can, but there's no point, because that's his boss.
He is his slave, actually.
Yeah, he's his slave. So, he might hate him, but he's still his slave. Yeah, he can be angry on himself, but I think he takes it out classical projection style, or he takes it out on Obi-Wan, and he wants to kind of have him burned in a similar way that he was burned.
Yes,
and
revenge.
He wants him to go through this like torture ordeal. He says, "You should have killed me when you had the chance," which is probably true or not, depending on if we include the fact that he did eventually kill the Emperor. But you will suffer, and your pain has just begun. So he plans to have this long torture thing to get his revenge, because that's the only person he thinks he can put revenge on. But interestingly, Leia sends Tala after him, and eventually even Loda helps to get him out of the fire barrier that they have then created.
Absolutely. And I still wondered how the third sister Reva made it so quick to the pilot, so to the other end of this.
Yeah, you're talking about the end. Yeah. Yes. So she killed the pilot, and now she poses as the pilot. So what's happening here? That's, of course, a cool cliffhanger.
Yes. And what I also notice is she looks a bit like Darth Vader, doesn't she? So she has this cloak thingy and
Oh, that's
so
just standard Sith clothing. You have to
but
wear something dark and something red, and
the fifth brother doesn't have this also Umhang.
yeah, he may not, but he looks weird with
Yeah.
his wok kind of on his head, pen or
Absolutely.
whatever it is. So you have to look weird and some kind of
Yeah, apparently.
have some black cloak or something, I guess, or pale white
Apparently,
face or
yes.
tattoos or something like that.
Black cloak, white face, done.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
or you if you're born with a red face and horn, that also helps, I suppose.
But then you still need the black cloak.
Yeah. Otherwise,
So-
you can of course just shoot force lightning at somebody and it reflects and deforms your face. That may also be cool.
So
I
we
guess.
have
Or
have
not.
some apart from fashion questions, we have some further questions. So what I noticed is Reva, the third sister, she looked at this empire symbol at the wall and in the hiding place. And I thought, what's the meaning for her for this? So did she remember her time as a Jedi or something? Or what
Yeah,
was it
maybe.
about?
Interesting.
Yes, and then the other thing is what happens to the younglings and to force-sensitive people who are hunted by the Empire.
I
So
guess what happens is two things. I guess the expanded universe and stuff gives us some information. I mean, unless they changed it. I believe what happens is either they're being killed or if they can, they make people who serve Palpatine, like the Red Guard. Did you remember the Red Guards that he had? These were also force sensitive people who could fight pretty good. They were his personal guard,
so they
his
get
personal bodyguards.
brainwashed somehow. Or...
Somehow brainwashed to become sort of a low-level Sith army, but they're not really fully trained as Sith. But if they show potential and are completely loyal to the Emperor, they'll be used in some form, I guess.
So some more slaves then.
Yeah, basically. I think something like that.
Yeah.
There may be other versions of this, but I think that's the general idea. So I'm looking forward for episode 4, of course, what will happen. I mean, it's kind of like we know Leia will survive, so I'm not too worried. We know Obi Wan will survive. So that's part of the trouble with a prequel thing like this. We kind of know they survive. So that's not going to be, but it's more the question of how they survive. And other characters like Tala, of course, could be killed, and I hope she isn't, because I really like her. I hope the loader isn't destroyed. But what I really, really want to know is, will they give us any more information and any good explanation what happened to Obi-Wan, and will he get his mojo back? I mean, he needs to get some of his mojo back. He was not such a loser in A New Hope.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
When's that coming?
So now some suspension is created by having them separated, so we can expect some more adventure on Leia's escape and on Obi-Wan's recovery. So
okay, unless they of course interpret Obi-Wan in A New Hope as being basically at that state and he never went better. I mean, he didn't have any big fights really. And they may say, oh, well, he lost against Vader, so maybe that's just it. But that would be sad. So let's see what happens. Let's see what they do. Let's hope Disney isn't going to ruin our heroes, but give us a cool backstory. And I'm not sure it could go either way from here. I still like most of the atmosphere. I don't like how weak they portrayed Obi-Wan without giving us a proper reason why. I'm okay if he was weak for a good reason, but and I do understand that the whole Anakin thing and the whole defeat of the Old Republic, that this is really, really sad and depressing, but that doesn't enough for me to depress a Jedi to this point, especially a Jedi who's still on a mission for something? I mean, if he has no hope whatsoever, what's he doing protecting Luke? You know, if you think everything's going to go to hell in a basket and there's nothing I can do, why is he there? And if he thinks it's all useless, why would he teach him anything?
Yeah, I'm looking forward for the new episode and hope also that we get some good explanation for all the stuff happening. And yeah, at least we know they will survive, but I'll still look forward to the story and to the action we will probably
Hopefully,
see
yeah.
in
I'm
the
looking forward to
hopefully
that
see in
too.
the future. Yeah.
Okay, so
Well,
stay tuned. We're looking forward to see you again. This was a bit of a long talk, and thank you for staying till the end, which you obviously did when you're listening to this, or you just fast forwarded and said like, well, okay, how are they going to end this? But hey, there were some things that I think we really needed to discuss, and we're looking forward to your opinions. What do you think about those matters? Tell us in the comments, and subscribe. Stay with us, and we're looking forward to see you again for the review for the next episodes. May the force be with you. Bye
May the
bye.
force be with you. So,
may the force be
bye.
with you. Bye bye.